59 years to the day, almost to the minute. Of course, with us is President Ross of the Alabama State University. We have the Honorable Elton Dean, Chairman of the Montgomery County Commission. We have Mayor Todd Strange of the City of Montgomery, and of course, an icon of the civil rights movement, Attorney Fred Gray. Mr. President.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me say good afternoon and welcome all of you here, and thank you for being here. Welcome to the Alabama State University. As we host this news conference, the 59th anniversary, almost to the minute, of a historic ASU student-led lunch counter sit-in protest of the Montgomery County Courthouse segregated cafeteria. It was on this date in 1960 that a group of Alabama State College, now university, students dressed in their Sunday best went to the Montgomery County Courthouse segregated cafeteria, sat down, and attempted to order food, as was their right by the United States Constitution and under God's law. Those brave young men were Joseph Peterson, Bernard Lee, St. John Dixon, Edward Jones, Leon Rice, Howard Shipman, Elroy Emery, James McFadden, and Marzette Watts. One of these courageous ASU 9 is with us here today. Please join me in recognizing Mr. Joseph Peterson. Mr. Peterson, will you please stand? He is also here with his family. Mr. Peterson, if you'd have your family, please stand, and those who are here with you, please give them a round of applause. 3 generations of his family. These young ladies are here experiencing living history, and we're so thankful. Mr. Peterson and his fellow students were denied any food and were soon arrested because under Alabama law at that time, it was forbidden for black citizens to eat at the courthouse cafeteria or in any establishment that was designated as for white only under the Jim Crow segregationist laws as found in the Code of Alabama 1940. It was forbidden by custom and enforced under the threat of brute police force for people of color to even be inside the courthouse unless they were a part or a party to a criminal or civil case or involved in a governmental activity, much less to eat in a segregated cafeteria. So you see that Mr. Peterson and the other Alabama State students were literally placing their lives in jeopardy so that others might taste the fine fruit of freedom and equality for all, regardless of the color of one's skin. This university is proud of them and all of those students and alumni who have followed in their footsteps. Mr. Peterson, thank you. Thank you for your courage and your selflessness on behalf of Alabama State University, the city of Montgomery, the state of Alabama, and this nation. We are also grateful that both the Montgomery County Commission and the Montgomery City Council have recently passed resolutions condemning the errors and wrongs of the past and are moving forward as we all attempt to make Dr. King's dream of a beloved community a reality here in the city that gave birth to the modern civil rights movement. Thank you to Chairman Dean, Mayor Strange for being here today. Allow me to introduce now one of America's most revered civil rights attorneys, Fred Gray, who is an alumnus of ASU from the class of 1951, which included his fellow civil rights icon, Fred Shuttlesworth and F.D. Reese. Mr. Gray is internationally known as the attorney who represented Rosa Parks when she refused to give up her seat on a segregated city bus in 1955, as well as the attorney who represented Dr. King throughout the movement. He has pled and won many civil rights cases before the federal court and the United States Supreme Court, including New York Times versus Sullivan. Alabama State University is proud to name him among our prestigious graduates. Mr. Gray represents a song that I only listened to. I wasn't born when it was made. But when Sam Cooke wrote the words, change gonna come. I am proud to introduce to you the Honorable Attorney Fred Gray.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate his leadership at this university and appreciate those kind remarks he made to me. Let me first express my thanks and appreciation to several persons. First, I want to thank Dr. Darrell Moulton, who a week or so ago dropped me a little email and first told me about this event that was going to occur here today. Secondly, I want to thank Mr. Kenneth Melanick, your public relations director, who officially extended me the invitation to speak to you on behalf of the president. And last but not least, I want to thank the president for personally inviting me to be here today. I also want to acknowledge the presence of my wife, Carol, and my nephew, Thomas Gray Jr., who's someplace back there. His mother and father, both graduates of this university, and his father was one of the original members of the board of directors of the Montgomery Improvement Association. We meet here today on this historic campus where I graduated 68 years ago to celebrate the sit-in demonstration of the students who conducted the sit-in and who were expelled. All of those students were my clients and the clients of the other lawyers who represented them in the case of St. John Dixon versus Alabama State Board of Education, from the district court here all the way to the United States Supreme Court. In the case of St. John Dixon et al. Versus Alabama State Board of Education and all. It is not by an accident that the site of this demonstration occurred. But let me first say, I'm just wondering, you have already met one of the persons involved in this case a few moments ago. Are there any other persons here who were a part of that demonstration? If it is, raise your hand. And just tell them so they'll know who you are.
I'm Cornelius Benson, Birmingham. I was put on probation.
All right.
I'm Joel Reed from Montgomery.
Okay.
I was also put on probation.
Let me tell you, there were two sets of students involved. You know, as time passed, facts gets a little distorted and we don't know about them. But there were two sets of students involved. Some were residents of the state of Alabama and some were not residents of the state. And when Governor Patterson decided to take the action he took and the State Board of Education took the action they took, they ended up, those who were non-residents of the state, they were expelled completely. Those who were residents of the state were suspended and then permitted to come back. The case of St. John Dixon, when the governor took the action in the state board, they retained me to represent them, and I decided to file the lawsuit on behalf of the students expelled because we had reason to believe that those who were suspended were going to be there. 59 years is a long time. Facts get distorted, but if you want to know, and it's been recorded for some time, the history of these sit-ins in 1994, I wrote my autobiography, Bus Ride to Justice. And in chapter 10, beginning on page 165, it's entitled Sit-ins, Freedom Rides, and Freedom Walks. It gives an adequate account of not only the sit-in demonstrations, but it also tells you about many other events that were occurring in Montgomery, all of which had something to do with it. The sit-ins in the Montgomery County Courthouse, the site of going to the courthouse was not by accident. It was planned. Those students who were interested, in conjunction with their lawyers, when they decided to do it, the question is, where are we going to have it? We concluded the best place to have it is at the courthouse. That was my recommendation to them. And it was for a simple reason. We had experience since December the 1st, and before then, if you go back to Claudette Carvin's case on the 2nd of March of 1955, we knew that the police department would arrest them. They wanted to do what the students had done up in Greensburg. However, they didn't want to get arrested. And I didn't want them to get arrested, because if we could get the same thing and not get arrested, then fine. We had had wonderful experience with Maxim Butler, who was sheriff. We had gone through the trial of the 89 persons. We had gone through a lot of other trials, and we had found Maxim Butler to be a very good person. And he would be fair, and that's all we wanted. So then, when they decided to go to the courthouse, and when they went in, and when the sheriff was called, he came in, and there was a picture, and some of you had a picture of this, it's all here. At this institution, some years ago, these students, and there's the sheriff, he didn't arrest them. He just told them, just let them sit there as long as they want to. And after a while, what did the students do? They got up and left and went back. There was no criminal action brought against any of these students. However, the governor became involved in it. He asked the president to find out who were there, found out who was there, and then the decision was made, and the decision I told you about took place. We filed the lawsuit. It's one of those cases that we lost before Judge Johnson, because you, in the past, up until this case, the matter of getting an education at any institution of higher learning, whether it was private or otherwise, our state supported, it was not a right but a privilege. We took the position in that case that at a state institution, a person has a constitutional right for an education. And that constitutional right cannot be denied until and unless they receive procedural due process. It hadn't been argued before. Judge Johnson, while he ruled with us in Browder versus Gale and some other cases in the interim, he ruled against us. We appealed it to the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit ruled in our favor. The State Board of Education appealed it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to review it, so it became the law of the case. So then we have, and as a result of that, all of us now understand what that law says. But there's a couple of other things. So many other things that's happened as a result of this case that most people don't know about. The business of faculty members at universities and colleges. The whole question of in the employment law. Now before, in many instances, before an employee can be discharged, that person must be afforded a notice and opportunity to be heard. You know where that case came from? It came from this case, St. John Dixon. Not only that, there were at least 3 major national organizations that came into being as a result of trying to comply with St. John Dixon. The first one was after this case was decided, lawyers representing colleges and universities across the country came together and said, what are we going to do in order to comply with Dixon? And you know what they did? They formed NACAWA, the National Association of College and University Attorneys. It's a nationwide organization of which I later became a member and was on its board of directors. And later they gave me one of their first awards because I was the lawyer who filed the lawsuit that brought that organization into being. When that organization came into being, they found out that colleges and universities was having trouble getting insurance. So they formed an insurance company, United Educators Insurance Company. And that is the organization that insures most of these colleges and universities. It all started as a result of this institution. Then you had another group of administrators on campus, those persons who was dean of students or vice president of student affairs who had the responsibility of enforcing and protecting the rights of students. They formed an organization. So then they formed the name of that organization is, so we're sure we have it correct. And I know I've taken more time than you wanted me to take, and I'm gonna stop. But anyway, you had NACAWA, then you had the Association of Student Conduct Administrators, ASCA. That group formed. And 9 years ago, they invited me to speak to them at their national meeting. And I'm going to close by telling you a little something about what I told that group, because that was the group that had the responsibility of being sure that these rights of these students were taken care of. In preparation for that meeting, and that occurred on February the 3rd, 2010 in St. Petersburg, Florida. When I was getting ready for that, I'd gotten over the years to know Governor John Patterson quite well. I got on the phone and called the governor, the former governor, and said, Governor, this group of university administrators have invited me to come down to talk with them about St. John Dixon and about the action you've taken. I asked him, I said, Governor, will you give me some words of wisdom to say to those administrators? He said, well, Fred, and we've had a lot of activity since then. He says, if I had known then what I know now, I would never have done what I did. He further said that what I did was wrong, and it was motivated by wrong motives. And that was a good thing for him to say. I shared that with those people. But I told them that they, as the ones who have the responsibility of protecting the rights of students, you need to, what can you do? And I suggested to them that one, they need to learn from what the governor says that the matter of protection of student rights is good, is great. And this university and all universities need to realize that the only reason why colleges and universities exist is so they can educate students. So as you educate these students, they need to be treated that way. The next thing I told them is that as they do that, and I'm going to close by saying this, this case, I told them, probably meant more to me than it did to those people who were there. And as I talk to you today, it probably still today means more to me than it probably do you. And I'll tell you the reason why. One, it occurred in the city of my birth. I was born in this city. Not on this side of town, but in the Washington Park section, and grew up on Day Street in Jeff Davis. So I want to see Montgomery grow and develop, and glad that this mayor is doing a good job in that direction. Secondly, it occurred on the campus of the university that while I was attending it, the professors here instructed me and encouraged me to be a lawyer. Persons like J.E. Pierce and Thelma Glass and Joanne Robinson. And as a result of those encouragement and others, I made a commitment on the campus of this university when I was a student. I was going to finish law school, come back to Alabama, pass the bar exam, and destroy everything segregated I could find. So if I've been able to do anything, it has been because of instructions I received on this campus and the motivating event. It's not enough for us to assemble here today and say how awful it was and how bad it was for the Board of Education and for Governor Patterson to do what they did. But what we need to do is look at where we are now. See all the problems we still have, just like we had problems in the 50s and 60s and 70s. We still have problems. We need to use the example of these courageous students on this campus. And as they did what they could then to end segregation and lunch counters, we need to complete the job of doing what needs to be done so that all of our God's children will truly be free. And that's our challenge here today. Thank you. Don't think about you.
My parents taught me to be smart. Being smart is not try to follow Fred Gray with the history lesson. So I'll not give you my prepared remarks, but I have been mayor almost 10 years now, and president, I think I've dealt with 5 presidents since that period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got a winner with Dr. Ross. He is doing all things good for this institution because, as Fred Gray has said, this institution is Montgomery. So when this institution does good things, Montgomery prospers. And then we have to explain when it's not. So from that, I appreciate that. I'm also a history major, and I saw the movie where General Patton says to Rommel, I read your book. Well, I've read Fred Gray's book, and I know that history, and I appreciate that particular history. And Fred Gray is, as he said, lives and breathes doing everything to continue to destroy all vestiges of segregation, and over the years has done a masterful job of that. There's not many events that Elton Dean and I have not stood hand in hand and arm relative to civil rights. I know the 50th bus boycott, we were arm in arm. I know the 60th Selma and Montgomery March, we were arm in arm leading the march. This is an opportunity to, again, tuck between those time periods, right or wrong, that was done at that point in time. As we become, or as we try to become, the conscience of this nation, I think Montgomery has a history of doing that, to try to do the things that will make a difference over that period of time. And Ms. Patterson, I would love for you to join us at this podium because we have a proclamation. Is he back there? I mean, Mr. Peterson, I'm sorry. Mr. Peterson, if you could join us. We didn't plan it this way, but we have 9 whereases. I'm not going to read each of those 9 whereases. I think symbolically those 9 whereases represent the 9 that were expelled during that period of time. But we do have a now therefore. And Mr. Peterson, I wanted you here because while this proclamation is going to be given to President Ross, to ASU, we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for you and your 8 colleagues. So if I may read the now therefore. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council and the Mayor of the City of Montgomery, Alabama, that while no one can remake history, nor can any official municipal action right all the wrongs of the past, the City Council officially, publicly, and explicitly acknowledges our sorrow, profound shock, dismay, and appall for those wrongs of the past, and recognizing the grief, the pain, and suffering caused by actions years ago, express our disappointment and remorse to the students and families of those arrested and prosecuted by the City of Montgomery for participation in the demonstration of 1960. With our profound gratitude for you taking a stand to stand up by sitting down those many years ago. Thank you.
This is something that's very close to my heart also. I've been in Montgomery all my life also. And any time that Attorney Gray gets up and speak, I think about him and his brother on the west side of Montgomery, and my dad that they knew, Willie Dean, what they all went through at that particular time and what they all fought for. Life was not great or good at that particular time, but education was also very, very important. And when you have two young men like the Gray guys to finish law school and make history like they both did, it gives hope to the area that I represent in Montgomery. That's still West Montgomery. So I applaud you. I continue to applaud you. I love you. And it's just amazing how you keep on remembering and putting the word out what needs to happen. I too, Mr. Peterson, Chairman of Montgomery County Commission, is going to present. I'm not going to read it. He read it. A lot has been said. Attorney Gray has said a lot. But I want people to remember in 1955, back during that time, that was their Montgomery. Today is our Montgomery. But like Dr. Gray said, there's still a lot of things that are going on that need to take place. Back during that time, the civil rights boycott, people were together. They were together, hand in hand. They might have argued in the church, Mount Zion, Hope Street. They might have argued, but when they came out, they was a unified force. It was a unified force. They didn't care who was the chairman or whatever. And I remember the church that Martin Luther King was nominated MIA president, Mount Zion, MIA Zion Church, 657 South Holt Street. It's just amazing how what these guys fought for and how today it looks like it don't mean a lot to the people that exist today. So I want to challenge people to go back and think about what these people went through without, they didn't have black politicians during that time. They had lawyers and preachers and cab drivers and teachers. That's what they had. But they were together. Now we got all the ingredients that it takes, but the ingredients that we have, they're not together. I heard a guy on the radio yesterday, Dr. Reed there, we talked about Governor Patterson interfering. Well, he talked about Governor Wallace interfering, trying to change things. There's John Knight back there, whose family was threatened, crosses burned in the yard. Knight versus state of Alabama. Alabama State, Old Mother Day, has been fighting on the warpath for years and years and years, and we're still fighting. When I was chair in 2013, one of the governors asked me to resign. He got in the Alabama State business then. So they're still doing it. So what are we going to do? We got to come back together. We still, Dr. Ross, got to sing that song, "A Change Gonna Come," because it got to come. So, Mr. Peterson, I applaud you, and I want to tell you, everybody in here, I just, with the help of Representative McClellan and Dr. Knight, they've come to the county commission and talking to me about an area in the county courthouse, the lunchroom, to commemorate where you all sit down at. And I told my administrator to go look at it, and we want to make sure that it's a spot there to commemorate where you all sit down at. So, see, Montgomery is a tourist town now. We want people to see that, okay? So, all right. Thank you, sir.
We've got just a few more things to do, but before we do them, Attorney Gray, if you would join us up here with these gentlemen so we could get an official photograph for the university archives and for the archives of anybody who was here. Is this good, David?
Yeah, we're gonna cut the mic down.
So that's a good mic right there. That's 90.7.
You guys all just look at me.
Come on up, Rick. You want one?
Let's take turns. Come on up.
You're good. I like that.
All right, you guys all look over at me. That's great. Thank you.
Everybody, there you go, Miss Hannah, get one.
Right here. 1, 2, 3. One more time.
Anybody, WVAS, you want one?
Here she comes.
on
Here
up.
she comes.
Don't mind.
Home
My
station.
favorite
Got it.
radio station.
Yeah.
Family members, y'all got one? Okay. We're good? Very good. And gentlemen, of course, advertiser.
I want to get you in the picture.
I don't want to break their limbs. But now, for members of the news media who are here, if you have some questions that you would like to ask in an open format, please feel free to do so. We also will afford individual sidebars for you afterwards if you request that. But members of the news media, are there any questions? Andrew, I've never seen you without a question. Yes, ma'am, Associated Press.
Mayor Strange, Kim Chandler, the Associated Press. The resolution, as I read it, expresses sorrow and regret. Is it fair to characterize this as an apology?
You can put your own spin on it. What we want to say is that it was wrong, that we're sorry for it had happened. We did not make the arrest ourselves, and so I'm not sure that we, the city, even have a reason for the apology. We know that from a standpoint of history and for our city, it was not a good mark, and it continues not to be a good mark, and we can't change history. So it is what it is. I was thinking about it. We actually could not even find, to my understanding, a conviction in our municipal courts or recorder's court. So there's no pardon involved in that. It was an action at the State Board of Education and the governor's level, And what we're trying to do is we're saying how sorry we are that the leadership of our state, of which we were certainly a subdivision, how regretful we are that we took those actions.
I think Chairman Dean said he-
However, the city of Montgomery did arrest the students from this university and from McMurray College
Right.
in the Regal Cafe.
Afterwards.
It was afterwards. It was within a very short period of time. I think it was between all of this, a lot of things were going on. But we had that case at that time where they were arrested, and this was in a black community, a black restaurant. Nobody complained. Police found out about it and arrested all of them. We represented a group of them. Mr. Durr represented the white students from McMurray College. Then we had another situation that came as a result of that occurred in the Jefferson Davis Hotel, where you had a white person who was in that group that came with the students and got arrested because they tried to integrate the dining facility in what was then the Jefferson Davis Hotel. So the city of Montgomery, while it is my city, and we didn't want these students arrested if we could get what we wanted without, and that's why they went to the courthouse.
Chairman Dean, did you say you'd like to add to that?
I would just like to add from Montgomery County standpoint, I'm not going to try to be politically correct at all. Yeah, we are sorry. We apologize. And we'll do it 100 more times to make sure that things like this don't happen in Montgomery County today.
Mr. Young?
For Mr. Peterson, last year you had the State Board of Education expunge your records and the records of the other students. This year, if not an apology, at least a symbol of atonement from the city and county. How do you feel?
Well, I feel good. I feel good that the record's been expunged. I never really thought it would happen. And this is just an opportunity for Montgomery to do the right thing, and the state of Alabama to do the right thing. So I'm very pleased with what's going on right now.
What was in your mind 59 years ago today?
Were you hungry?
That's really hard
Were you
to
hungry?
say. That's really hard to say, but we knew that going to the county courthouse, that the county courthouse being a target, was kind of important to some of the students during that time. And then I almost forgot about the Regal Cafe, where some students came from, I forget the name of the college. They came to Montgomery to visit. We carried them out to lunch, and the police show up. So hopefully that won't happen now.
Is there any message for being in ASU now, students that are going to hear this, see this? Is there any message you have for the next generation of ASU students?
Well, I've seen a lot of things. I'm I guess 83 years old. I worked for the right after leaving Alabama, I went to work for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Bob Ruskin's office in New York. And that was a good experience, getting to meet people that was concerned about what was going on in America at that time. And I'm happy to be here today to accept this. And I think what we should do is look for some of the people that was put on probation. And I'm not sure that all of the students is passed on. I'm not sure how much research people have done for that. That's about all I have.
Mr. President, would you like to finish up?
Sure.
I think there's one thing for the record I want to acknowledge when you finish.
Well, Dr. Reed, I'm going to let him finish,
I
but
said when he
but
finishes.
go ahead.
Dr. Reed, and I yield to you for the record because we're gonna close it.
It's not different what you're gonna say anyway.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, let me first of all thank everyone for being in attendance here today. I want to particularly thank the faculty and staff, Dr. Moulton, and others for all of their hard work in making this a reality. Because we surely have been blessed with what our ears have heard and our eyes have seen. I call this a teachable moment because when you look around the room, for those of us who were yet unborn, it shows the sacrifice that was made. And we truly stand in what we consider the epicenter of justice and equality throughout this country. Alabama State University is that epicenter. And so through what has happened by the city of Montgomery with the mayor, as well as the chairman of the county commission, we are pleased. And Mr. Peterson, we are pleased to also let you know that through Dean Franklin and Dr. Robinson, that research is and has taken all of those individuals who were involved, even reaching out to their family members, because those are the unsung heroes that we have to continue to talk about. And again, I want to thank Attorney Gray for being here and thank all of you as we continue to move the Alabama State University 150 years forward, being marred in the civil rights movement in this country. Thank you and God bless you.
Here, here, the 2 more.